Jamu Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamu, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamu Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamunomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamu Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamu Money Transfer.
Hello and welcome to another edition of our show, The Constitution We Want. Of course, we come back here every Monday to talk to you about the newly gazetted, tabled, new draft constitution, the 2020 draft that was tabled at the National Assembly. The first reading was already done. They will be back in March for the second reading. And obviously, that's where we will know whether it will go to another stage amendment or whether it's going to be sent back to sender, like I call it. And of course, this is a civic education show sponsored by the Gambia Participate, National Center for Civic Education, and Jamu Money Transfer. And again, today we are back in the studio. With me, I have Madi Jobarteh. Madi is the founder of Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, and Tony F. Mendy. Tony is the senior table clerk at the National Assembly. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Madi, before we get to the Constitution, I have to talk about the Edward Francis Small Center. You know, since you founded that organization, we have not spoken on this show. I was really excited. Because, you know, I've always said, look, Madi is my favorite activist, and I think I kept saying this, but the work you're doing is just beyond you. It has to go through an organization. And what inspired the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice?
Yeah, so first of all, you'll have to create an Edward Francis Small Hour.
Okay.
So we have a
one-on-one on my show.
On that,
yes, let's do that in 2 weeks' time.
You know, because that's going to be a long talk. But the long and short of it is why the organization?
Why the organization?
Because we want to enhance the democratic governance of this country in order to strengthen national development. Understanding that we cannot enjoy good governance and sustainable development in the absence of the protection of human rights and, you know, upholding values and standards of transparency and accountability and all other things connected with it, such as the civic awareness of citizens, the participation of citizens, so that they can further influence public policy, hold public institutions, officials to account, to make them perform and deliver efficiently and, you know, effectively respond to the needs of the people. So that for what I have, having been involved over, in the Gambia's policy and development processes over the past 30 or so years, as a journalist, as a civil society actor, advocate, and so on, I like to say there is no place in this country where I've not gone to a meeting, from State House to Basse Area Council, you know, villages and towns, meeting not just technocrats, policymakers, but also with local people, young people, to talk about development, to talk about governance. There is no policy or agenda or project or so for which I have not sat in a meeting at Caraba Hotel, at Senegambia Hotel, at Tendaba Camp, in the planning, in the monitoring and everything. So essentially, having gone this far at my age and my participation, my experience, I know the in and out of Gambia's policy and development environment.
Yeah.
And when I sit back after all these years, I have come to realize we have only one issue which is missing in this entire frameworks, processes, plans, ideas, and so on of national development, is the absence of transparency and accountability. Yes, that is to have open government in which the government, public institutions realize their obligation to fully, on a timely basis, adequately inform Gambians of what they are doing or not doing. To educate Gambians about our laws and policies and, the national agenda, to create the space for Gambians to participate in all of this process and to render account for what they are doing or not doing, and so on. So that anywhere, that is not just the Gambia, anywhere transparency and accountability is lacking, not only does it marginalize people, keep people in the dark, but what that generates also is that it encourages abuse and corruption and inefficiency, and then nothing is done about it, so that what prevails is impunity.
Yeah.
So that people, and you look at our governance, I said, you take NAWEC, for example. Since NAWEC electricity supply started in this country, when NAWEC was used to be called GUC, since they were created sometime in 1970, in the 70s to date, you cannot provide 24/7 uninterrupted electricity supply to every village and town and home in this country. Until now, vast areas, homes of this country don't have water and electricity supply. In a land that is widest distance, 400 kilometers. Longest distance. Widest distance, 80 kilometers. No mountains, no natural barriers. All right, we have sunlight 24/7. Why cannot you do that? We have a national telephone service, company. You cannot guarantee uninterrupted, affordable telephone and internet services across this tiny piece of land.
Yeah.
We have a ports or ferry services company. We have one ferry between Banjul and Bara. You cannot guarantee 24/7 uninterrupted ferry service since independence 60 years ago to today. And the examples go. You got to look at health. Yesterday, I went to visit Ndemban Clinic to see the Kafuta victims, and the poverty of that health service, health clinic, in terms of personnel, in terms of health resources, health equipment. And this is the story across. You look at our education system. You go to our schools. 60 years, this country, by now you go to every primary school in this country, you should have seen a classroom well equipped, air conditioned, with television sets, with floor tiles, with necessary teaching and learning materials. All right? You go to agriculture. Until today, we are not able to feed ourselves. And we have abundance of fertile land. We have a river that cuts across, the country. So when you look at all the elements, all the sectors, the only reason why we are not where we should be is simply because there's no transparency and accountability. It is not lack of resources. You look at our budget, you look at the loans and grants that this country receives, you look at the local revenue generated in this country, not just by GRA, but by many other revenue sources of the government. Gambia has more than enough money to generate our development to the level of Singapore, a country that we gained independence in the same year. A tent is at State House right now. Yeah, Jamu bought it. $88 million. I mean, dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, just like that. You just buy a tent, $88 million. So what has been happening in this country, Fatu, is that our public institutions don't work. They don't perform. They want to get all the benefits. They get all the immunities. They get all the powers. All right? But they don't want to work. They don't want to deliver. All right? And they just face no consequences for what they do or don't do. And so this is how this country has been going on for the past 60 years. And so for me, I have enough of it. It has to stop.
It has to stop.
That is why E.F. Small Center is established and named after Edward Francis Small.
Yeah.
Because of all Gambians, the person who has stood up to make sure that people in power, those in power, are held to account was Edward Francis Small. He was a journalist. He did that through journalism. He was an activist. He was a trade unionist. All right. He was a fighter, a freedom fighter for the people. So he deserves to be named after this organization, but also to serve as an inspiration. You know, not just for me and anybody who's associated with this, but to remind our young people particularly, but also our intellectuals, our technocrats, our people in the civil society everywhere that, look, there was a man 100 years ago who decided, you know, at huge personal cost, but to stand up for people. So that for our people, especially our intellectuals who have no values, who have no integrity, who are ready to sell their soul, we will tell you that was Edward Francis Small. Those are the people who inspire us, not you who come here educated by the people, served by the people. You are benefiting from the people only to come back and betray our people in broad daylight, as we see, you know, in Barrow and his cabinet members and technocrats across the public service. So this is why we named this organization after Edward Francis Small. There's a deep message in it. And I hope we will have one-to-one one day and we'll talk more about this.
I think we should. I'm going to be away for 2 weeks. When I come, you'll be my first guest. Let's look at deep down what the work you are doing. Because definitely you are continuing the legacy of Edward Francis Small. And I keep saying it, and I don't get tired saying it. You know, that's why when you are arrested, I'm like, if they can come after Madi, we should all be scared, because this is the only person who is doing that work, you know, holding government accountable, you know, at his own personal cost, you know, and so much sacrifice that you're doing.
Many more arrests will come. Many more arrests, people will be arrested, because if you have a society led by unscrupulous individuals who assume public office only to transform it into a self-serving, you know, enterprise. They therefore will not want to be held to account. They don't want to be checked. They don't want to be questioned. And they want to be left alone to plunder the wealth and the future of our country. And so people like us are not going to stand by. And I'm sure there are many other Gambians. So there will be many more arrests.
There will be. And we are all ready for those.
And we are ready for
We are ready for that, because we will continue doing our job and, you know, to make sure we are serving our people. And I think it's a noble cause. We once again want to commend you. And we will do, I think it's better, we will do a more detailed program about the ES Center.
I'm available.
Tony.
Yes.
Now let's look at the Constitution. The 2020 draft was tabled. It was rejected by the National Assembly, the 5th legislature, right? Now, the executive sat within cabinet and made amendments and came with a new draft, which is called the 2024. It was gazetted and now it was tabled at the National Assembly. The first reading was done. The process, for me, I don't know the legal route, because I'm not a lawyer. But for me, I said, morality itself, it's wrong. The first thing I said, let's send it back to them. Because why would everybody make decisions about what should be on our Constitution? It was rejected. But if you want to bring the Constitution back, the consultation, the negotiations, all of those should happen. It should be an engaging process. But the fact that they just did what they did by themselves without engaging nobody, I thought the legitimacy of itself, the constitution has gone. There's no confidence. Some of us don't believe in it because we believe some people try to protect themselves. But you are a lawyer. Do you think they legally did the right thing when they just sat there and did their own thing and then sent it, gazetted it, and now it's at the National Assembly? What is your opinion on the entire process?
Thank you for having me. And before I come to answer your question, I must say that Mr. Jobarteh is everyone's advocate.
Yes.
He's everyone's favorite activist.
Yes.
And of course, we encourage him
Thank you.
always to keep up.
Yeah.
But everyone has their course in life. And one must appreciate that there has to be some Madi Jobarteh in every society.
Yes.
So personally, we talk a lot. So I encourage him to keep up, especially when the name comes. The name Edward Francis Moore comes up. You know, the values that he spoke of indeed are reflective of that person. You know, and history, of course, no matter how many billions of us live, it will always take account of the records of the great men. Those who serve society in the best way they can.
That's true.
And those who put the interests of society above them.
So
we definitely will appreciate the position of Madi in our society, and everybody should. To answer your question as to the legality of the executive bringing the constitution to Parliament, I earlier sometimes in 2020, when the 2020 draft was submitted to Parliament, wrote an article explaining that explaining the power of Parliament in the entire process. And in that article, I did speak of the nature of constitutional building process. They are both political, and they have a legal aspect, and they have a political aspect. And generally, a constitution, if you want it to be a document to govern the entire nation, you would seek, one would think that you seek the consensus of the people to have the legitimacy that it requires for it, for it to be a document. Not everyone may agree, but at least the overwhelming majority will agree that this is a document that should needs to be the overall document to govern us. And that's why it has a political aspect and it has a legal aspect. Now, the political aspect is where the consultation comes in. That's where one reasonably expect that. Of course, you engage the stakeholders who are involved or who are concerned in the process. And the stakeholders in this, and that is, by the way, not only unique to constitutional building. In all legislation, if you are building any act of Parliament, any bill that you intend to, you have to seek the views, the consent of the parties involved. And those are naturally the members of the National Assembly, stakeholders in that sector. If it's health, of course, you involve the health expert. But the nature of the constitution is such that it's a concern to everyone. So naturally, you have to involve the major stakeholders, and then there's the public who have the final say at the end of the day. So that is the consultative process that is required in order to gather the legitimacy. Mind us that at the end of the day, we may ourselves here, the technocrats, like it happened in Kenya in 2005, in 2005, you have technocrats taking in charge and starting there. But when they were done, the people out there rejected it for various reasons. So there has to be a consultative process. Following that consultative process, there has to be the legal framework that has to be followed by the executive in tabling the bill. Of course, whether or not a consultative process has been done sufficiently, that I've watched several, so I've read several materials, and politicians are debating on that. So I leave it to the politicians to debate on. But legally speaking, the executive has the mandate for Section 100 of the Constitution. The legislative authority of the state lies with the National Assembly and the executive. So the executive are given the mandate to bring in the law into Parliament, or to propose the law to Parliament. Parliament itself too can propose the law and work on to legislate. It is not necessary, even the Constitution, and I must say here, it's not necessary that it has to come from the executive. Even the member of Parliament can bring a private member bill to bring a new Constitution. But you will understand that a member will not do so, because at the end of the day, you may not have the legitimacy, the support that you need for you to pass that such Constitution. But legally speaking, per Section 100, it is the authority, the executive has the authority to bring in the Constitution, to propose any law to Parliament, and it's up to Parliament to follow the law equally in dealing with that proposed constitution.
So you're telling me legally what they did was right. They could sit there, draft something. It's a bill. It's a law.
Yeah,
it's a bill. Yes. So they can draft it and bring it to the gazette it and bring it to National Assembly.
Sure, certainly. Because if you look at Section 100 and all the other sections that follow, there's no law specifically requiring that a particular individual should be consulted before the law comes.
Okay.
That is the law. That is different. That is the legal aspect of it. That's different from the political aspect. That's why I spoke of the need to consult. Because at the end of the day, in governance generally, there is authority, there is political authority, and there is legitimacy at the other end. I can be out there. Mr. Jobarteh is here. He has lots of legitimacy. When he speaks, people listen.
Yes.
Whether even those who oppose to the idea that he says,
they will listen.
And there are a majority of people who agrees with him. So he has that legitimacy.
Yeah.
So if for example, Mr. Jobarteh, I and him have our political party, and Mr. Jobarteh commands respect from a lot of people, you naturally want to hear from Mr. Jobarteh.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if he takes a position, that will be detrimental to the entire process. So that legitimacy is always sought before the introduction of bills. That's why the CRC, the Constitutional Review Commission in 2000, established by the CRC Act 2017, took up the initiative to, the act of course, if I clearly state that they have to do the consultative process, and that is obviously to seek the legitimacy and the opinion of the people and bring it forward. But even without that, that doesn't make the introduction illegal or otherwise inappropriate.
Madi, so if the government has the legal right to propose a bill, and in this case that's what they did, why did you call it the Barrow Papers? Because they have tabled so many other bills also, and you didn't call the Barrow bill. Why this one though? Because I do understand the morality in it, but in the legal way, according to Tony, they have the right to do this.
No, not quite. I think Tony misplaced some things.
Okay.
And so we need to separate things. You know, I've been having this fight with our lawyers. So me and the lawyers, we, you know, are also always fighting. Okay. Yeah, because, you know, so a constitution establishes a whole legal and political dispensation. Yeah. And in other words, we call it a republic. Okay. That's why we have Second Republic, and we refer to the First Republic in terms of 1970, so that when that constitution establishes a republic, it is supposed to live forever. Yeah. All right. When that republic is overthrown, and that is, it would require lastly the abrogation of that constitution, and so the building of a new constitution to create a new republic. So that if you look at a country like Ghana, today they are saying they are in the Fourth Republic because they have many instances. Yeah. So, and a constitution can be overthrown through military means, but also through popular uprisings, like the Arab Spring, for example, or just in Bangladesh not long ago, to remove, a regime usually, and then, of course, a whole new constitution established, because the constitution establishes a certain political dispensation and a legal framework. Usually, that legal and political framework would be found to be empowering the current dispensation in place. And this is why we have a problem with 1997, because it establishes a certain political framework that we found to be dictatorial. So that anyone who is president of the Gambia under the 1997 constitution, you have a lot of, undue powers that effectively constitutionalized dictatorship in this country. So that when we need to change that constitution, there are processes we need to take. But we cannot use the 1997 constitution to want to replace the 1997 constitution, because the constitution does not provide for its own replacement or for its own killing or so. So he referred to Section 100, for example. Yeah. Section 100 only talks about laws not the constitution.
Okay.
So it only talks about laws that can come from the executive. You know, ministers bring it as a bill, or a member can bring a bill, or even a committee can bring a bill. But that is all within the framework of the 1997 Constitution that has given, established the executive, the legislature, and gave them law-making powers.
Yeah.
So in the context under that 1997 Constitution, they can come and make other laws. Yes, they can make other laws, other regulations, and so on. But they cannot go and create another constitution, to replace 1997. Yeah. So Section 100 provides that opportunity for the executive, the lawmakers, to bring a bill to create a law. And that law, we would call it usually an act of parliament.
Yeah.
Yeah. But under the 1997 Constitution. Now, if you go further, Section 226, where it talks about amendment, it elaborated even more what provisions you can change, what provisions, that is, can change in the National Assembly, and what provisions parliamentarians themselves cannot even change, because those are said to be entrenched clauses that would have to require referendum.
Yes.
But all about where you need to amend this constitution for the purpose of this constitution, not a replacement altogether of the constitution. So Section 100, Section 226, individually put together, gives no power whatsoever, gives no authority whatsoever to the executive or the legislature, individually or collectively, for them to write a new constitution on the basis of the 1997 Constitution. They would have to undertake another process, all right? Because, as I said, you can change the republic.
Yeah.
It can come through violent means, a military coup, or uprising, or something like that. Syria, I'm sure they are going to write a new constitution. They've kicked out the existing legal political dispensation under which Assad was. So I'm sure they are going to write a new constitution, even without a parliament, and they may have an executive. But a whole process would have to take place. Okay. In our case, that, which is something I have sounded when the CRC Act 2017 was promulgated, that the process, the CRC Act, the way it was structured, that it is not going to give us a constitution. And if you recall, Fatu, 2020, when the draft was now going to the parliament and was there, I was one voice saying, don't touch.
Yes, you kept saying that, don't touch.
Because I felt it was wrong to take our draft constitution to the National Assembly as a bill within the context of Section 100 and Section 226 of the 1997 Constitution. One, that is wrong. Number two, it is also wrong to have parliamentarians sit and decide that draft when parliamentarians were consulted, like all other Gambians, by the CRC about their opinion for that draft. And therefore, why should they come again when we have all exercised, gave our opinions, for them to come back again to look at it? So that, number three, if they do, by the nature of the parliament, of course, they will go and remove something or add something. So which means they have effectively changed
the will of the people.
The will of the people, and they, as 52 people or 58 people, have no authority whatsoever, no power in any way to change the opinion of the people.
But they are
without the authority of the people.
People will say they are our representatives.
Yeah,
they make laws on our behalf.
People always forget something.
Yeah.
The supreme authority in this country are the people.
Yes.
The NAMs are just our representatives, just like the president is our representative.
Yeah.
They don't have absolute power. And their powers, their functions are all crafted in the 1997 Constitution and other laws of the Gambia under the 1997 Constitution. So it is more or less meaningless talk, which I heard people say ever since, to say, but they are our representatives.
Yeah.
People have to understand the nature of a republic, the nature of legal and political frameworks, so that the situation we face right now, it's not a situation where it is a question of they are representatives, so therefore they can do this. No. So I feel in some sense, governments don't seem to appreciate the time in history we are at right now. Yeah, because if people do, I think a lot of the arguments people are making, I think would be different. And I'll let Tony come so that I come and talk a little bit about that history. Because to ask ourselves, why are we here in the first place?
Why are we here? It's important. We need to know that. But Tony, you wanted to comment on what Madi was saying.
I not only want to comment, I have a lot of questions for Madi, and I think Madi is missing a lot of points in his own argument, and they are contradictory to what he's saying. We must first appreciate that if you look at Section 7 of the Constitution, lots of the Gambia includes the Constitution itself.
Yeah.
And we cannot ask if create a new process. Madi is effectively advocating for the creation of a new process to bring us a new constitution, but he's not hitting directly what process he wants us to initiate.
We'll come to that. I'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yes.
The fundamental defect in this argument lies on the fact that if you look at Section 226, 9, subsection 9 of the Constitution, it defines what repeal is, what amendment is. And if you read, a careful reading of that section will indicate that the repeal does not only speak to the repealing of specific clauses or section in the Constitution. Let's say section, you can amend section, any section of the Constitution. If it says, it speaks to the language that you can even amend the Constitution, it differentiates the Constitution as a whole and all the sections of the Constitution. So if you read the language of Section 226, especially 9A, it speaks to that effect, that not only can you amend part of the Constitution, you can amend the Constitution as a whole. So if you amend the Constitution as a whole, that amendment amounts to repealing. Because if we are saying we want to replace the entire clauses in the Constitution, that because we want to replace the entire sections in the Constitution with new section, that is why we make use of Section 226, because it will require referendum.
Yeah.
Now, we cannot initiate any other process other than what the framework which the Constitution provides. If we initiate another process, like Madi suggested, what will be the legitimacy of that process? Let's say we want to, like he argued, we give it to CRC. Now, I question, what would have been the legitimacy of the CRC? I would say the CRC was given that mandate by the National Assembly. Then, because the National Assembly initially, why did the National Assembly give that tax? Is because the National Assembly itself has that power. That's why the National Assembly gave them that power to exercise on their behalf. However, the exercise of that power was subject to its coming back to the National Assembly. It is not as if because the National Assembly mandated the CRC to draft a constitution, that constitution becomes a final document that the country should work on. Because that CRC itself doesn't have that authority, doesn't have that. We may argue that the CRC consulted National Assembly members, consulted everybody in the country. But I would then ask, why should we trust the CRC to have the final say and not the members? And just come not as if they will have the final say. Why should the final say of what is in the draft not come from the authority or the institution established by the Constitution to draft, to be the lawmakers, the primary lawmakers for all of us? The legislative authority is given to the National Assembly. Why should it not come from the National Assembly to the people than it coming from the CRC to the people? And the fear actually is unfounded, because at the end of the day, it's not as if the National Assembly as an institution or members will have a final say as to what is in the draft. Whatever is drafted and submitted to the National Assembly by whichever authority that has to do so, the National Assembly, again, will have to do its function, perform its function. When it is done, the National Assembly doesn't have a final say.
It goes to the people.
It will then be submitted to the people through the Speaker and to the IEC, Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, and then the people will have a final say.
Yeah.
And that is where the authority of the people, which he claims, which he's saying that we are the sovereign people, that's where we exercise our sovereign will.
Yeah.
We don't exercise our sovereign will through the back door of the CRC or through the executive. Just because the executive submits this document, that's the final, or because CRC submits this document, that's the final document. No. the final document should come from the parliament to the people. And when it comes from the parliament to the people, it is the people who then have the final say as to what is in the document. If the people say what you have drafted, this particular issue, like we happened in Kenya, we are saying this overwhelming authority you are giving to the parliament or you are giving to the state, to the executive. It's not desirable to us. The people are saying no. And if people say no, it will naturally go back. And we are saying, people are saying this is what they want you to do. That's why the political process comes about. You have to, again, consult, seek opinion of the people until the people agree to the finality of what they want to have in their constitution. So it is not as if we can initiate another process, because whatever process we initiate, and the examples that he gives around, even in Syria and so forth, our situation is unique in that we are not out of a revolution. We understand that every revolution are themselves a source of constitutional making process. I will agree with that. Yeah. But not as if we need to be out of a revolution for us to have a constitution. We don't need to be in a chaotic situation for us to see the demand for us to have a constitution. Yeah. And other states, other countries have. South Africa have had that transition in 1993 towards 1997. Kenya has had it. Even Ghana have had to repeal their constitution. They're not, when they were doing so, they're not necessarily in a very chaotic situation, but they saw the need. And let me speak to the need for the laws to be amended or to be repealed as time goes on, because the society changes. The realities of 1970 are not necessarily what we have here today. Yes. The realities of 1997 are not also what we have today. Right? I, as an individual, even my opinion that I have held in 2016, some of them have shifted. Yes. Because I've become, let me just claim, more enlightened as I go forward. Yeah. My perceptions changes. And I believe that is the case with a lot of the members of society. So as the perception of society shifts as the issues they hold, it is important that the law itself shifts or adjusts itself towards meeting the thinking of society. Yeah. And when that happens, we don't necessarily have to demand that we form an entire new process outside the current legislative framework. That clearly. And
I want to come here. Did the 1997 Constitution specifically stipulate that when you are making, because I know it's, it says when you make a new law or when you want to amend, but did it say when you want to make a new constitution? Because the laws are part of the constitution, right?
The constitution is the supreme law.
Is the supreme law.
Yes.
But if you're making the whole new constitution, was that specific? Because the reason why I asked this question, if that was stipulated in the 1997, we wouldn't need the CRC to have the 2020 draft. We would have just had the executive draft a new law, let me finish, draft a new constitution and bring it. I'm not a lawyer, but my thinking is building a new constitution. The reason why you would need a neutral and independent people, because this is the constitution of the whole Gambia. And we naturally know how politicians can be biased. And that's why there will be need for a provision for people when you make the entire constitution. There's a process of consultations and consulting everybody and making sure it's a fair process. There it will have legitimacy, people will have confidence in the process, and then when it comes to the National Assembly, obviously there will be political biasness there, then people can make amendments and others, but the process itself would have had some legitimacy. So if the 1997 Constitution has given the provision for the executive to be able to do this, why did we have a process?
Okay, I'll explain why we have a process. And I just want to comment.
But was it specific also that we can, was there? I know you said Section 100 says making new laws and everything, but the Constitution is not just a single law. It's like entire Constitution.
I entirely agree with that. In fact, I'm not even speaking to that direction. I agree, like I explained initially, that the political process. That's why you seek
Okay.
the legitimacy.
Okay.
That's a political process, and you know we don't want to. Our constitution clearly doesn't spell out how the political the legitimacy process, the seeking of the legitimacy aspect of it should be short. It's not clearly there.
It didn't. Okay.
That's why the parliament granting the authority to the CRRC was relevant.
Okay.
So that they may be able. That's why they spell out. If you look at Section 12 of the CRC Act, it spell out their function and why they should go out and meet people, seek opinion. That's to ensure that gap of seeking of the legitimacy is attained.
Okay.
That is aside. That is different from the legal process.
Okay.
The legal process, you know, is clearly outlined as to who can introduce the law and what law they cannot introduce.
Okay.
That is clearly in the Constitution. So I equally don't. I see the argument, and sometimes it baffles me. You know, we tend to empower politicians in a very strange way that we don't even realize. When we speak as if the politicians are the final decision makers. Just like you and I, they only have one vote.
Yeah.
No one, they are not excluded from voting in the referendum because they voted at the National Assembly. Or they have their position in the executive. Just like you and I, we all go on that day through the following the referendum act, we will go and vote according to.
But the most important thing is the amendments that they do at the National Assembly is what we vote on.
Yes, and that's where our authority stamps in.
Okay.
If at the end of the day, whatever amendment they do or fail to do at the National Assembly or at the executive level, when it comes to us, we should end undermining ourselves as a people, as if we are not aware of our responsibility. And that's why even the EF Small Foundation is relevant. That you know, as a society, we should seek to ensure that there is sufficient political socialization. Our people should be informed and know what they are worth of.
Yeah.
If the Constitution says the sovereignty of the people lies, the sovereignty of the state lies with the people, then the Constitution says then it is the people to exercise that sovereignty.
Yeah.
So when the people are called upon to exercise that sovereignty, it is up to them to say, okay, what you put in this law doesn't reflect our aspiration.
Yeah.
We are going to vote against it. Or to say, of course, what is there reflects our aspiration and we are going to vote for it. So the fear that either the executive or the legislature, the National Assembly are going to put in the draft constitution whatever they like, that is, they are performing their function. At the end of the day, unless we want to buy the idea of a chaotic society, like Mr. Jobarteh is suggesting that we have to initiate another process and we disregard both the executive and the National Assembly, and through that we go and have our referendum. If that is the case, then
that is not a normal process.
It will not only be normal, but I, in fact, do not see how we are going to proceed at the end of the day. Because you can initiate your process whatever you want. At the end of the day, it will have any authority to do so.
Madi.
Okay. So we have to clarify things. As I said, Section 100, always we should bear in mind that the 1997 Constitution is about the 1997 Constitution.
Yeah.
That is Section 100 she referred to. All right. To create bills, introduce bills that would create an act of parliament as laws under the 1997 Constitution as the supreme law of the land. Now, to amend the 1997 Constitution itself, we mentioned Section 236, and he referred to Section 9 of 236.
Yeah.
If you read that section, because you asked a pertinent question, is there any specific provision that in the 1997 Constitution that provides for the repeal of the 1997 Constitution? Now, it doesn't exist. Now, Section 236 is about amendment of this or alteration, changes to this Constitution.
Yeah.
So that particular section he mentioned, subsection 9 of 226, says in this section, references to this Constitution include references to any law that amends or replaces any of the provisions, underline that, any of the provisions of this Constitution. So it is not about amends or replaces this Constitution. It says it replaces or amends any of the provisions of this Constitution. So this Constitution is intact.
Yeah.
You cannot change it based on...
Can I just ask a question before you proceed there.
Right.
You say, you said any of the provision of this constitution. Now, if a bill, and you agree with me, based on section 226, the assembly can even initiate the process of amending entering clauses.
Yeah.
Yes? So now, imagine that the assembly now want to amend entering clauses, and they bring a bill to that effect. Because that bill, though not amending the entire constitution, will go to the referendum. Right? Now, it says provision of this constitution. Now, if a bill comes, that is effectively amending every one of the provision of that constitution. What is left in that constitution?
Nothing.
That is the repeal process.
All right. So legally, the bill, section 226 also says any bill you bring should also indicate the objects and reasons for that bill.
Yes.
A memorandum of, explanatory note, something like that.
Yeah.
So when such a bill comes, it will be a bill to amend. It will list these sections of the 1997 Constitution. If you recall 2020, and just like the 2024, the bill that was gazetted, it says the promulgation of the 2020 draft Constitution. It did not say 1997. Because they cannot say promulgation of the 1997 Constitution. So effectively, they cannot do anything with this 1997 Constitution in terms of replacing it. They can replace from section 1 to section 100, last section.
And it will still be called the 1997 Constitution.
Yes. And they will have to list.
You are making an error, because that 2020 promulgation Constitution draft itself has a section that specifically says the 1997 Constitution will be abrogated.
All right. Which is unconstitutional.
No. It is not unconstitutional. Because just like we have a section. If you look at the second schedule of the 1997 Constitution, section 15 of the second schedule, it abrogated the 97 Constitution. It did so. If you look at
1970.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
This current Constitution abrogates the 1970. The same was the case with Kenya. If you look at section 260.
I'm coming to that.
Exactly. Of 264 of the Kenya Constitution. It's also abrogates
the Constitution. You are still skipping 1 or 2 steps. Let me just end this, and I'll come to address that. So this is what 226 subsection 9 subsection A says. And then there's a subsection B, which also says to the alteration of this constitution. It says alteration. Alteration is changes, amendments. To this constitution include references to the amendment, modification, or enactment with or without amendment or modification of the, and then comma, of the constitution or of any provision for the time being contained in this constitution. Now, the suspension and repeal or the making of different provision in lieu thereof, comma, and the addition of new provisions to this constitution. So, he is a lawyer. They know the importance of punctuation marks, especially the word comma. So that if you read this subsection 9, subsection B, 9B, again, it is talking about amendment, repeal, reenactment, reenactment, deletion, all right. So words like that, but all referring to provisions of the 1997 Constitution and not the entire Constitution.
Look at, just kindly do me a favor and look at the part that says of the Constitution. And you are right in pointing out the punctuations, which I will leave to the Supreme Court, the most landed jurists to decide on. But you just kindly look at of the Constitution, how the Constitution is differentiated from the other provisions of the Constitution.
Right.
So this was the argument I was making earlier.
Important point. Let me clarify there based on this law.
Exactly.
So when it says or reenactment, reenactment with or without amendment or modification of this constitution. What do you reenact? This constitution. It is not to replace it. So this section 9B is very clear.
Clear on that.
Section 226 is very clear. Section 100 are very clear that these are all referring to changes within this constitution. So you can even reenact this constitution, or repeal or replace or amend a provision or any part of this constitution, but not to repeal.
But it will be called the 1997
constitution.
So, so to have a new draft, according to what you are explaining, you would need a new process.
So what is happening now? What is happening now? If they had advised themselves legally properly at State House and Ministry of Justice, they should have said the reenactment or with or without any amendment of the 1997 constitution. But we are speaking of a 2024 draft constitution. So that is completely out of this provision.
Mr. Jobarteh is taking literally the terms alteration, amendment, repeal, and so forth. They can have the same. They can mean, and I agree with you.
No, don't say they can. Now, since I'm taking literal, now tell us the legal thing without any conditions. Just the point.
The law doesn't operate like that. I'm saying they can have different meaning based on what you are doing. For example, if I amend section 25 on the Bills of Rights, if I amend section 25, only that's an amendment. That amendment doesn't amount to repealing the Constitution. But when I amend the Constitution in totality, every one of the provision of the Constitution, that amendment, the effect of that amendment, is as repeal.
But that is still going to be the 1997 though.
No, it doesn't. You see, the laws, the titling of the laws, when you're drafting laws, the titling of the laws is best that, the National Assembly can make retroactive law. We can make law right now and name it the 2010 Constitution. Insofar as it doesn't affect the rights of individuals, we can name it like that.
No.
But you can name it any name. Insofar as it doesn't affect individuals. But the title of the law is best you title it at the time it's being enacted. So if the law is being enacted in 2024, it's best you title it 2024. But that aside, if the argument of Mr. Jobarteh were to be agreed upon, then this constitution cannot be legally be replaced. Because there would have been...
It cannot. It cannot.
That means
you cannot replace this
constitution, we the people...
1997 constitution.
Whom we are saying, the 1997 constitution, the people whom we say are sovereign, even when they decide to repeal that constitution, he is saying that sovereign people cannot do that.
No, they can do that.
He's saying you can through a new process.
No. Okay, so let me speak to that.
Let him explain that.
Okay, so you referenced Kenya. An important point, because I had raised the issue of Kenya to officials at that time. All right. Now, Kenya went through an election. Remember the 2007 election was very violent, post-election violence when Kibaki took over. So Kenya then launched a constitutional review process in 2010. All right, that he referenced. But by that time, Kenya had an executive and Kenya had a parliament. And all these state structures are in place because that was not a coup or an uprising or anything.
Just like we have.
Just like we have in 2016. All right. But what Kenya did is that they created a CRC like us. All right. But in their law, they also established a constituent assembly. Now, this constituent assembly, I can't remember now how many people are in it, but it's a cross-section of Kenyans, all right, which became the approving authority of the draft constitution. So the CRC became like a committee of technical experts, which would have put the constitution in a language after having obtained opinions of people, so that when that draft was produced, it was presented to the Constituent Assembly to review, because we saw the contentious issues when 2020 came. So the Constituent Assembly looked into that draft back and forth until the consensus was arrived, and then that final draft was presented to the president, who presented to the parliament untouched, and the parliament subjected it, to the electoral body to a referendum to be held.
Yeah.
The parliament did not review that final draft. So what that indicates is that it is the people who made the constitution, because it was the people's opinion sought, and there are already established legal and political structures. So, and that is the country. The people said those things. They will be utilized. So the president was utilized, the parliament was utilized, the electoral body was utilized, an election was done, and then 2010 they had a referendum. All right, and a whole new constitution came into being. All right. Now, if you look at the Gambia, 1996 or 95, 96, yeah, we set up a CRC here. Yeah. Also, the military.
Consultative committee.
All right, but 1994 they had kicked out the president. We had an unelected president.
Yeah.
We had an unelected, there was no parliament. The military council was both executive and legislative council.
Yeah.
So when that, we arrived at that point, they by decree created a constitution, a CRC, which also went round and got opinions of people. And 1996, that was a draft, which they gave to the AFPRC. Now, for the AFPRC to now submit to the PIEC, at the time it was called PIEC, Provisional Independent Commission, to do a referendum. Now, just that in that time, the military, Jamu, deliberately, that draft, they edited it and removed things there, here and there, and then sent that to the the PIEC, to conduct a referendum. So I have said in 2017 to officials in the Ministry of Justice, to our civil society leaders and so on, this process, no. We needed a CRC like they had. But to make this a people's constitution,
it should not be touched.
We should have had a constituent assembly. That draft that the CRC submitted to the president would have been submitted first to the to the Constituent Assembly, 50 Gambians, 100 Gambians, 200 Gambians, across the board, or representative, so that they sit down on it. And if you had done that, the 2020 draft, the contentious issues we came to talk about, maybe we would have clarified those things and have a consensus. Because the Muslims had their issues, the Christians had their issues, other businesses have their issues, others, agreed on certain rights issues and so on. So if you had a constituent assembly, in which there was the Supreme Islamic Council, Christian Council, civil society, persons with disabilities, farmers, teachers, a representative, when they finally arrive at an agreement, consensus on that draft would have been passed to the president, for the president to forward untouched, to get parliamentary approval also of that draft, because these are our state institutions, people's legitimate institutions.
Not really, Mr. Jobarteh, because based on your argument, you are literally saying we don't trust those.
No. I think you are misinterpreting my point.
I'm not. The point I'm trying to make is that the argument is that these are state institutions, but those state institutions don't have the authority.
Yeah,
they don't have the authority.
Yeah.
Now,
to write a constitution for us.
Yes,
they can facilitate the process for the writing of the constitution, and that process that will not, exclude them certainly. But I don't know how I can put this. You see, people have powers and functions and authority and so on, but these are not absolute, and we cannot just use the simple argument. Oh yeah, we have National Assembly members, are representatives, so they should decide for us. No. It's not that your representative will decide for you forever.
That is not the argument. And that you're missing the point again. The argument is not as if the National Assembly members are decided. The National Assembly members are not deciding anything.
No, they are.
No, they are making changes, Tony.
No. If they make changes, then they
make changes.
Whatever, those changes are not what... Those changes are part of the processes of framing the Constitution.
No,
let me just
because when we go to referendum, let me ask this question quickly.
Let me just come.
Okay,
yes. Okay. They are part of the framers, because that is their primary function. Their draft, in terms of entering clause, of each and every entering clause, that's why I asked him earlier, if, for example, Section 25 is an entering clause, if Parliament today want to take up that initiative to amend that section, can they not do that?
Yes.
They can do that.
Yeah. But that's not a constitution. No, that's a provision in the 1990 constitution.
So I think sometimes I'm using that because without entering clauses, there will not have been needed for referendum. The most fundamental issue. No, it's relevant. In fact, that's the most relevant thing. You know why? Because the reason why a referendum is so or is needed is because that the clauses in the constitution that are going to be touches on fundamental aspect of our state that the people said in 1997, we are not going to allow those issues to be decided by politicians.
No.
That's what the people say. That's why Section 226
You see,
entering those clauses, such that if the executive wants to touch those clauses, the executive must come back to the people because they are fundamental. But other than that, the executive can amend or repeal any other section
Tony, that's
in the
not
constitution.
The issue here.
So the reason I'm just trying to I'm giving a direction as to why referendum is needed.
Tony.
So whatever Parliament does, whatever the executive does, they're just doing their functions. They do have their legislative function. But where those legislative functions touch on fundamental aspect of our constitution, they have to come to the people, and that's why the referendum.
When we go to the people, when we go to the people, do we, for example, if this draft goes to the National Assembly and they make amendments, like in the second reading, if they decide to amend it, if we go to referendum, how does it go? How do we vote? Do we vote on a whole constitution as a whole, or do we vote on section by section?
No,
because the reason why I ask this question, if we go as a whole, we are voting for everything. Like, I might agree with this, the people might agree with this particular thing, but they don't agree on the amendment the National Assembly made on a certain thing. So they don't have a choice to choose. It's specific sections that they have disagreements on. They're just voting as a whole. Because, you know, what the National Assembly has, we don't have that. The choice they have is to look at section by section and amend them, right? We as a citizen, do we have those choices to say, we're voting yes on 50 plus, we're voting yes on term limits, but we are not voting yes on the role of the anti-corruption bill? Do we have those choices just like the National Assembly?
No, you don't have those choices. And let me explain why. Referendum is a very simple vote, yes or no vote, for the whole of the constitution. Now, and this is where the political process come in. You know, we live in a state, myself, for example. Section 1, the first section, when the CRC submitted its final draft, I was laughing and saying, why do they remove the word secular? Personally, I believe whether, at the end of the day, my position is that whether the word is there or not is immaterial. But as a person, I don't buy to the rationale of removing the word. If you want to be absolutely clear, you don't have to remove the word. That was my position. But given that that's my position, but the CRC removes that position, remove it there. And there's, let's say, assuming that it goes to the assembly, and the assembly also give it to the people that way it is. Now, am I going to say I'm going to vote no to the
entire draft?
Or I will say, now, even though given that my interest or what I wish is that the word secular is there, but there are certain aspects of the constitution that if I weigh the balance, it is I will have voted. There are more positive things than there are few negative things there that are not relevant, necessarily going to affect me. So that those are choices left to the electorate to make. Those are not choices for politicians, not for the drafters to make. So we cannot submit the responsibility of drafting the constitution, or not as a people, as a state. We cannot submit. We ought not to submit the responsibility of drafting the constitution to the people. You know what would that amount to? Chaos. Chaotic. Anybody, for example, right now, Mr. Jobarteh is saying that the state doesn't have the authority, and nobody has, seemingly. So we can just, I and Mr. Jobarteh, he's very good in organizing. So we can organize and strategize, and have our bodies, draft our constitution, and take it to the people. At the end of the day,
so I think I get. Let's finalize on this point, because at this point I get it. Madi will. This is Madi's position, and this is Tony's position, and the viewers will finalize on what they.
Before Mr. Jobarteh comes, I just want to ask him the question, and he can answer alone. What would have been the authority of either the executive or any other organization to initiate the process of bringing a new constitution, if that that if he's arguing that the Constitution doesn't provide for such framework, what would have been the authority of the state?
All right. So I think when I say they don't have authority, maybe the way you hear me, I think it's you really expand it. I mean, make it absolute. Let me be clear, and I have written extensively on this on my Facebook page, for example, and spoken about it in programs like this. I recognize that this republic right now is under the 1997 dispensation, which has established institutions. I'm not saying those institutions are useless or they have no role. They have a huge role. Barrow's Manifesto 2016, the Coalition Agreement MOU 2016, they have talked about a new constitution. And since 2017, we have all agreed that 1997 will have to be changed. We have to be replaced. Now, the question is, how do we replace it? All right. And I think that is where we are having problem.
Yes.
Now, I am saying the process to do it would involve executive, involve legislature, but the issue is to what extent of involvement. That is I think that is why we don't get eye to eye.
Yeah.
I'm saying the creation of a CRC Act 2017 is in the right place. They can initiate it. They should initiate it.
Yeah.
Because they are responsible authorities with the legitimacy, the legality to initiate something like that.
Yeah.
No. According to your then that if that's the case, we agree. No. Because your argument is that based on Section 226, they can't.
No.
What he's
Section 226 is to change the constitution.
If they can do
amend the constitution, no. Section 100 is about making a law.
A law.
So I'm saying, because the 1970 constitution is what is here. So it provides under Section 227 to create an act of parliament. That act of parliament in the form of the CRC, it is now how do you structure the CRC? That is the constitution building process. All right. What structures and what processes do you create in that act to enable the creation of a new constitution that should replace the 1997 constitution? So I'm saying the executive took a right decision to initiate an act in 2017 to create the CRC Act. But as I said, when that act, that act, go and read the first bill of that act, 2017 Act. There was a previous bill which said both the executive and the parliament will not touch the draft. They took it to parliament. There was a debate in the parliament there on the chamber, and then it was changed. The moment it was changed, those provisions were removed, and then under miscellaneous, there's a chapter in the CRC Act 27, miscellaneous, that after the president is submitted to the president, within 6 months will submit it to the parliament, untouched. And then when it submits to the parliament, no further
touching.
No further steps were identified.
Oh.
All right. Then the parliament, the president, and the CRC have the authority to publish the draft. And then 6 months after the publication of the draft the tabling of the thing, I think the CRC commission will stand dissolved. So the parliament, I think they gave us a problem when they changed the first bill, which I think was right. And then they gave us the CRC Act, which now did not do anything. And so because of that, justice and the parliament now saying, okay, because of Section 100, we can introduce bill. They introduced the 2020 as a bill under Section 100. All right. Now, I felt, and that is my argument here, my position is that CRC Act 2017 should have also gone further to say the National Assembly will not touch this draft, but would pass a motion to send the draft to the IEC, for the IEC to conduct a referendum.
That will be in violation of the Constitution. And let me say why. Section 226 outlined the first reading, second reading, and the third reading.
You see, So, Tony, I think this would require one to have a very broad legal and political
orientation.
Yeah.
Because still, I'm saying 226 is still talking about an amendment to the 1997 Constitution. And this bill, this draft Constitution is not a bill. It's not an amendment or repeal or replacement of the 1997 Constitution in the context of the 1997 Constitution. So a process would have to be taken that is outside of that 1997 Constitution.
Whatever process taken outside the Constitution has no legitimacy. Whatever process.
No.
That's why I said then nobody. That's why I told you. That's why I gave an example of Section 25. For example, if you want to amend that clause, you know,
So you see what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop this argument here.
But let me
I'm going to send this to the Supreme Court. I think somebody should definitely. Okay, go ahead.
But no, let me just say how we got here.
Somebody should definitely send it to the interpretation.
I'm just going to say how we got here.
Yeah, how we got here.
You see, this is probably the fourth constitution that governments are to deal with since 1965. Our 1965 constitution was not written by Gambians. It was written by the British and then imposed on us.
Yeah.
And you read it, you know this is just a British constitution for their colony. That's why we also claim the Gambia is not independent in 1965. And
I agree with you.
The legal basis, the political explanation for that, you just go and read 1965 constitution. We then moved on to 1970 when we had a referendum. They said we have a republic.
Yeah.
Now, but even that Republican constitution was not drafted by Gambians. It was drafted by the British Parliament, brought to the Gambia House of Representatives, and then,
submitted to the people.
Passed. I mean, so the people did not contribute to it.
Okay.
All right. Then we moved on to 1994.
Yeah.
And then, for the first time, a process was taken to give people now the opportunity to write their own constitution by the creation of the CRC, all right, and then a draft came out. But unfortunately, that was aborted when the AFPRC now took the People's Constitution, that 1996 Constitution. I have the original draft of it, and it is good. They took it and butchered it as they like, and then submit it to a referendum for the people. And we have continued with that 1997 until 2017. 18, when we created CRC now, another process that initially started as a people's process. That a structure was created, went around, obtained people's opinions, and then at the final end, like in 1996, again, the political leaders hijacked it and aborted it, in the National Assembly when they killed it. All right. 2020, we continued until today we are in 2024. And now a very illegitimate, in fact, the most illegitimate process was taken where the executive took that draft 2020, which is the most people's-oriented constitution in this country since independence. They butchered it into these borough papers. And then now they are putting it before the parliament, which will further butcher it as they like.
And send it to us.
And then send it to the people. So that's why my position is the current 2024 borough papers is illegitimate. The process. People got to be concerned very much about process and legality. You talked about legitimacy and legality, which is what the process is about. The process is illegitimate and is illegal. Illegitimate in the sense that the executive cannot, in closed doors, go and draft a constitution and then gazette it and then tell people we have drafted and then gazetted a constitution for the country. That's why when they said that was consultation, everybody came and said, no, we are not consulted. Now, that's a very illegitimate act that government should not forgive them for, ever. All right. And now, like 2020, 2024 again, to want to rely on the 1997 section 226 to create this as a new constitution, as an act of parliament, as a bill under the constitution, as an act of parliament, is illegal. Unconstitutional as far as the 1997 constitution is concerned.
Then what do you want to rely on?
So
let them just answer this
we
question.
have done.
No,
we have done this back and forth.
I want you to answer. What do you want us to rely on?
I'm going to.
Tony, you are not trying to appreciate the sense of what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying Because you want to create the impression I'm saying executive, legislature, 99 constitution are all useless. They have no role here. No, they have. I'm just telling you the extent to which we can rely on these structures and institutions.
Yes,
officials.
but we must rely on them, provided Mr. Jobarteh, provided in fact we have the authority to rely on them. You see, the initiation itself has a basis. It must have a base on which you rely to initiate the process. So whatever process is initiated,
and that process is illegitimate.
Whatever
the initiation is illegitimate.
You know that's a political. Legitimacy is political. It doesn't have to do anything with law. I agree with you.
So now
but I want to clear this with him.
Just 1 minute, yeah.
Yeah, I want to clear with him. If you say they have to initiate, the one initiating must have a basis for initiating. If the executive don't have a just out of the political ambition, initiate a process outside the framework of the law, that initiation, that process has no basis. Even if it goes to the people we adopt, even the referendum act, you cannot rely on the referendum act and without the constitution, because before you rely on the referendum act, you must have certified what
I just gave you the example of Kenya.
So now
the only difference between the Gambia and Kenya is the Constituent Assembly.
Oh, well. Why did they create it? Why didn't they just have a parliament like us? Why don't they just
that is a parliament? That's a parliament that surrendered its primary function. That's why when we said the CRC Act in 2017 rather, when the first draft came and said Parliament will not touch it, you know, you cannot tell Parliament you cannot do your work. It's up to Parliament to exercise that political will to say, okay.
But that's how the act was created.
No.
Who created the act?
The act was drafted that way.
Yeah.
No, whatever law you draft, you come to Parliament. Parliament is like the final drafter.
Yeah.
They can remove the I's, the T's, and add whatever they want.
Yeah.
I'm saying the proposal from the executive then was that none of us, both Parliament and the executive, are not going to touch it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Parliament, the Parliament says the CRC Act, you cannot tell us we're not going to do our job. That was their political ambition. So what Parliament did is they removed that and say, we are going to exercise our political will. Kenya, they surrendered that to the Constituent Assembly. And there's no law, by the way. There's no law that can tell Parliament you cannot touch. Because the Constitution already tell them you can touch.
You can touch.
So it's not just political. That is just political exercise of political.
So now we will leave this to the people and the lawyers. I wish somebody challenges this to the Supreme Court and we'll have an interpretation. But now that the draft is at the Assembly, I'm going to rush this one because we have only 25 minutes to go. Now that the draft is at the Assembly, Tony, you have had the chance to look at the draft.
Yeah.
What are your, if any, the progressive, and is there any areas that you're also concerned about, both good and the bad, with this draft?
I'm afraid to say that I don't intend to get into the pros and cons of the draft.
Why?
Why? Because
number one, let's make this clear. Yeah. This position, you are speaking in your position as a lawyer, not as a member of the National Assembly as an institution.
Yes.
Because I think that is why you are here as your position as a lawyer, and that is different from your position as a National Assembly as an institution.
Yeah.
So as a lawyer, you looked at this draft. What are the pros and cons that you saw?
No, let me repeat the point again. I won't want to debate on the pros and cons. I just want to generally say that if we want to build a constitution, we should owe it up as a people.
Yeah.
We should owe up that constitution and take the lead in the process.
Okay.
That's why this conversation, this is the time for everyone to have an opinion, to come out and speak to the merits and demerits of the constitution.
Yeah.
And those of us who are particularly directly involved in helping or facilitating the process, we are best positioned to reserve our opinions because we are placed to. We are there.
But you are also a Gambian.
I mean, very well. even
because when we go to referendum, you are going to vote.
Even the Honorable Chief Justice
has a position.
I'm sure has a position.
Yes.
But the nature of his work is such that he is best positioned to reserve that. But let me just say, if we want a progressive constitution, we must look into one that built of standard institution. Standard institutions that will ensure that the state function with efficiency, with accountability, with probity, and so forth. And in so doing, we must not put our immediate or interests, both players. We must, either those in the executive, the opposition, members of parliament, every player, the civil society, we must not put our personal prejudice to so much. I know they exist, of course. It's a political document and it's a legal document.
Yeah.
Those interests exist, but we must guide our interests such that they do not hurt us, hurt the entire country, either now or in the future. In the future, because we are not just building a constitution just say for another 10 years for us to come again and have this very exhausting process of trying to build a constitution. So I look forward to having a constitution that that empowers the National Assembly to do its job.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone who would love to do that. Equally, a constitution that ensures that the judiciary
is independent.
Is totally independent. The checks and balances also must not be erased. There has to be the relevant checks and balances to ensure that both arms of the state, the executive, you have to balance.
Executive, legislature
and the judiciary are all balanced. None of them should
be more powerful than the other.
Exactly. And I will additionally advocate, and I hope that we are going to have retain a constitutional supremacy regime. That we don't. I'm not a person who subscribes to parliamentary supremacy, even though I work there. But we should ensure that there's a constitutional supremacy, that the most superior authority of the state remains the constitution. So whatever dispute or whatever all of us will do will at the end of the day rest on the constitution. And I will additionally want a constitution that really reflects what a republic is. Any aspect of monarchical powers and so forth are done away with. So, like I said in the beginning, we have progressed so much. We are not in 1994 or 1965. There may have been some historical connotation as to why certain aspects are in our constitution, and not only in our constitution, even in other jurisdictions. But the time has passed, and if we look up to other progressive societies, we know that even though our population may not be adequately aware of the need for us to have certain things in the constitution, but leadership sometimes calls for us to be forward-thinking. Okay. Sometimes the leaders need to be up there above the masses in order to be able to guide them. And when you are there in the future, you'll be celebrated. You just remember E.F. Small. The values of E.F. Small, what he was advocating for in 1919.
Yeah, today he's been...
Even my grandpa was nowhere. Yeah. It was in 1919, but we remember him.
Yeah.
Among his generation, there are a lot of people who were with him.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who were with him. There are a lot of people who were in power at that time. But today, you search our historical books, you don't find them.
Yeah.
But there are names there that you see in our historical books that myself, I have no idea of. But generation will study them, generation will remember them anywhere they go. And that is, I don't think there's anything more worthy than that when it comes to human life, because we are all going to live and die. In fact, I have an opportunity once to tell one official, my friend, I told him, in the next 70 years, none of us is going to be here.
Yeah.
So whether we have whatever type of constitution that we present to the people at the end of the day, in the next 70 years, none of us should be here. We should think of how the people will remember how we presented and dealt with this constitution to them. Whether they're going to appreciate it or whether they're going to say this constitution, of course, doesn't serve our interest. Yeah. For me, that is the type of debates I'm looking forward to hearing from the public and everyone in the authority. And politicians, most especially, must not assume the role of being the most sovereign, the most sovereign people, and that whatever their wishes are, that's what should prevail.
That should prevail.
Politicians will always remember that the people are there.
Yeah, that's important. Madi, when you looked at this constitution, what are the good and the bad for you? I mean, I know the process, I agree with you. I don't believe in the process. And I think that is why. But when you look at the document itself, what are your concerns?
Call on the National Assembly members on the very first minute of the second reading to vote down
the constitution,
these borough papers.
To throw it out.
To throw it out.
Wow.
So that the country will now go back and take a legitimate legal process to give us a constitution that we deserve to build a republic that he's talking about. You see, Fatu, this country, since 1965, except the 2020 draft, all right, even which can be further improved.
Yeah.
But except that, the 1965, 1970, 1997 Constitution have created a fraudulent state in this country where the state and the country exist for the people who work in the state. They have all the powers, the constitution, which is the people's constitution, which is our sovereignty, our sovereign will and power, all right? They have crafted a constitution that gives all power and authority and benefits and immunities and privileges
to the executive,
to people who work in the state, whether they're in the executive or executive legislature or judiciary, and in between all the institutions there. So our state has been existing as a scam because of the constitutions that we've had all the time, where he talked about checks and balances. They have lowered checks and balances so that public institutions, public officials can do as they like without any consequences. All right. They have reduced our rights. You go to the 1997 Constitution, it has very limited civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights of the people who own this country, who own the Constitution. They have reduced those rights so that the people don't have rights. And they have lowered the obligations, the functions of the state, so that the state does not have to do anything. And then they have raised, benefits, immunities, and so on, those monarchical powers, they gave them to the state. So that since 1965 or since 1970, this republic is a fraud. It is not what we deserve, and we need a constitution that would recognize the sovereignty of the people, all right, and give people their full rights and benefits as citizens of this country, and impose heavy obligations and functions on the state in the way they manage our resources, in the way they provide us goods and services, in the way they protect us. If you are not ready for that, don't work in the state. Don't go into public office. But if you go into the public office, be ready to be a public servant. And so very specific, heavy obligations should have to be given. All right? People are dying. I mean, I read in the headlines today, no vehicle at the prisons affecting court proceedings is in one of the newspaper headlines. Do you know what that means? A prisoner, that prisoner is just, I mean, or maybe he's just in a remand, he's not yet convicted. He's sitting there, cannot go to court to get his freedom, to get justice. Because a vehicle is not there. Meantime, a minister is given a $12 million vehicle to drive around.
Plus utility car.
I mean, what is more unjust and dictatorial and, tyrannical than that? So what we have in this country since 1965 is a tyrannical republic, state. And it is high time governments recognize that and say, look, we need a people's republic, our republic. We cannot have this republic to serve the interests of the few people who work in the state. I just told you, Jamu bought a tent.
For 88 million.
88 million.
But Madi, so now if we throw this constitution, if in the second reading the National Assembly throws this out, we're still left with
we're left with Tony and many people may not see my point, but that's okay.
I actually see your point. Let me just compliment you in a way, and just to correct something. See, I understand the passion, and I shared with Mr. Jobarteh, and I understand even the issues you raise are very valid, or most of them are very valid. But these are not, a people's republic are not given just in letters. Unless we are living in a utopian society. You see, no matter how much you decorate, how beautifully you decorate a constitution, and I will tell you, most of the rights in both the 2020 constitution and 2024 constitution are similar, and only sometimes solely supplementary. You see, supplementary aspect provided for in that constitution. That is not in the 1997 constitution. But most of them are already in 1997 constitution. So when it comes to building a republic of the people, it is not only in text. That's why I said earlier on when I began, that to build such a nation that Madi so dream of, which all of us so dream of, you have to have
strong institutions.
Strong institutions, I agree. Even right now, there are strong institutions.
No, I disagree. You know why I disagree? That we don't have strong institutions, we have strong men. When the president has to appoint the Inspector General of the police, that institution is not independent. And his term limit is not guaranteed in our constitution. That institution is not independent because that leader there, if he is not very, very conscious, this is why you see how we don't respect the police sometimes, because we believe they are not right, they are political. The NAO, the National Audit Office, the president appoints them. And you know how they don't even go through a vetting process like we want in the 2020 draft. In this 2024 draft, that is not guaranteed there. No. The IEC also, the vetting process, even appointment of ministers, having them. In fact, for that I can give that. But for you to have strong institutions, you should have the independence of those institutions. Okay. How are they independent? Bringing people that are properly vetted. And then they are people of caliber, people of high standard, people of high integrity. Okay. That is why you have strong institutions. And that is not guaranteed in our 97 and this 2024 draft.
Surprisingly, let me just say it is. For example, most of the offices that you have named, they have security of tenure. And
they don't have.
No, I'm saying they do. And the constitution clearly.
How?
Let me.
Let's look at the IGP's office.
Okay, I was going to come there first. For example, the IGP, you're dealing with the aspect of security.
Yeah.
The aspect of security. I'm not even going to go to the nitty-gritties. But let me just speak on how the IGP can be held accountable and how the supervisor of the IGP can be held accountable.
How?
Let's take Section 75 of the Constitution. Ministers, Parliament can sack ministers. IGP is under the office of the answers to, let's say, the interior minister and the office of the president directly. Or I need to consult the Police Act and look at it. But the Constitution clearly provides so. Yeah. Now, if there's a minister who is not correctly doing his job, or who is not sufficiently doing his job, or let's say the IGP, just like we have in Parliament of Ghana, if you do follow, you will see the IGP appear in committees and be held accountable. So there are frameworks. So what we are missing, and that's why I emphasize the point earlier on.
No, you go back to that. You said the IGP is
to the minister. Parliament. It reports to the minister. It's answerable to Parliament. If the minister, for example, who
appoints that minister?
The minister is appointed by the executive.
And the president his appointment is not vetted. Parliament, the president appoints the minister.
Whether vetted or not. I don't want to get into
politics. It's not politics, but this is the reality.
I agree with you that, but I'm saying the framework exists. The framework exists.
The reason why I said we look at our current situations.
Okay, I understand our current situation.
Look at our current situations. I believe the IGP is my uncle, but I believe the office of the IGP is not doing the right thing. Okay. Because we see the selection of justice when they arrest people that are politically aligned with the opposition, and we have people that are doing exactly the same thing, and they're in the president's camp. They are not held accountable. The only reason why that is happening is we believe they are empowering the presidency and their people against the other people, and that is not accountability. That is not independence. Okay. That is our reality. And if the IGP had a tenure of office and is vetted properly, he would know that his job is secured. He will not get into all these little things. That is why we advocate for that. Okay. Because that little guy out there who has no power, his rights should be protected by the office of the IGP.
I agree.
If they are not doing that, that alone, the independence there is not there.
If you Google an article which I wrote for Mr. Jobarteh when he was arrested, I wrote what Mr. Jobarteh represents, and I echoed a lot of issues there. Yeah. You see, it's not about the person that you put there. It's not about what the text say. If you put me in a position, for example, someone may assume that I know this, know that, you put me there. The virtue of EF Small that Mr. Jobarteh was speaking of in the morning, what I said earlier on, we need to have strong political socialization. The IGP, police don't pick me on the way and throw me anywhere. Yeah. They don't do that. Or they just pick Mr. Jobarteh anywhere and throw him. They will always find reason to have Mr. Jobarteh. Because they know Mr. Jobarteh knows his right. and knows how to pursue the right to protect himself. But that's one thing. The point I wanted to emphasize is that
even though they know that Mr. Jobarteh Obora knows his right, they still violated their rights.
Just
in this current Gambia.
Yes, you see, those are not issues of us having to spell out into constitution and so forth. Because if you violate Mr. Jobarteh's right, Mr. Jobarteh has a right to sue you.
Yeah,
he has a right to sue you.
Yeah.
The framework is there for Mr. Jobarteh to pursue his right, to ensure that whatever injustice is done to him, he is placed in the right direction. So I'm saying the framework is there. The point I'm to drag on is that if there's a framework that this person appoints, the president appoints, or the executive appoints, and the parliament checks, and parliament even have the power to ensure ministers are sacked or removed from office. If such power exists, and the people have the power to elect the members of the National Assembly, if those people are well placed in a position, they have sufficient political socialization, they're well aware of their rights and responsibilities. If they execute those accordingly, you're going to begin to see how the system operates. And additionally, we must appreciate our history, where you come from.
Yeah.
You see, when PPP government took over since in the early 1960s, you understand that, as a country, the level of political socialization, I always emphasize on that, because the people are not awakened to build interest in governance.
Yeah.
And we have dictatorial tendencies that are embraced by the people. So our political culture rests on tribe, ethnicity, regionalism, how you call it, Benachin. You see, even you read on the papers that some people are giving, how you call it, Kajero to Calero into during campaign. Just imagine that. That is reflective of the political culture of our people. So what matters to our people, what matters to you and I, because of perhaps our orientation, may not really be what matters to the people. So those are issues, in my own view, that and I've echoed this several times, that we need to tackle. If you want to build a nation, you cannot just, you have institutions, very beautiful, built up there, while the people don't really know their function. And it's
but in such, within vetting processes for our public institution, most likely, especially independent institutions,
it's necessary. No one will say it's necessary.
It's important.
So you see, civic awareness is critical. If we are going to build a strong republic and strong institutions, Sankara said, a soldier without political education is a virtual criminal. But I always rephrase that to say a citizen without political education is either a virtual criminal or a virtual victim. So civic education is important. We need men and women of character, of integrity, to hold public institutions. And we do have such men since independence until now who are in the public office.
We have isolated men.
All right. We have such men and women. You can point to places, they will tell you this man is incorruptible, is honest, and so on. I mean, the former Auditor General, for example, Karamba Ture, we saw him even during Jame's days, the kind of audits reports he was producing. So we have men and women like that. All right. But whilst that is true, and that is an ongoing process, all right, at the end of the day, you even wonder which country has that kind of civic awareness, all right. Whilst that is ongoing and necessary, first of all, you need to have a constitution that, in the first place, provides for very strong framework for the possibility of building strong institutions, so that even if you have men and women without integrity, that constitution becomes an obstacle for them to fail in their duties. I give people this example. In the US, Mike Pence, all right, Mike Pence was vice president. Mike Pence
was vice president.
2020, when they were confirming the results of the election, January 6th, Trump and his Republicans wanted Mike Pence to corrupt that process, not to allow the winning of Biden. And they stormed the parliament.
To certify the results.
But Mike Pence, even though he was the vice president, he was going to be a beneficiary of if that did not happen. But by law, as a president of the Senate, stood to make sure due process takes place. Now, wait a minute.
Let proceed. On the part of Donald Trump,
No, I'm not done.
I want to twist it. Because on the part of Donald Trump too, Donald Trump, just like Mike Pence, have the same constitutional obligation.
Exactly.
Did he obey it?
He didn't.
He did not. He didn't. So now personality comes to play, not necessarily.
But then you know what held the supremacy of the institution.
Yeah, the constitution. Because Mike Pence referred to the constitution, his role by law, that he would uphold that. Just as we saw yesterday or 2 days ago, Kamala Harris performed that also.
But the question is, could he have?
Hold on.
Could he have violated the constitution? He could have.
He could have.
Exactly. So now it's a personality and the consciousness and how principled that individual is.
But again,
so
that is important. That is important. But what I'm just saying.
But backing of the institutions.
Why that is important? A man or woman with integrity, with character, even if the law is not there, will uphold justice.
Yes.
Exactly.
But you can have a man without, integrity and character, and the law is there demanding justice, and he fails. So if you come to the Gambia in comparison, 2016, 2017, we had a parliament here. Then Abdullah Boja was the speaker.
Yes.
Abaka Tomanyata was the
majority
leader. They know the election was free and fair. They know the Gambian people have decided. They've had the incumbent concede. All right? But still, 17 January, the Fabakai Tomonjata put before the parliament a motion to suspend the National Assembly and extend the life of the president. All right? But the 1997 Constitution, has provisions that he should not have done that. But he went to do that. So what I'm trying to say, Tony, men with character or with no character.
The 1997 Constitution said what?
Well, let him finish.
He cannot do that.
To abrogate the will of the people. I mean, what would he rely on? There's nothing to rely on to do that. So he basically did something that was just to violate, because he invoked the emergency
powers of the.
But the conditions set for emergency power, I mean, in the first place, before you bring in that emergency power, you have now, section 1996 or 76 to impeach the president for that. That's something like you need to be doing for the president reneging on election results. Instead of invoking that, you went to invoke a section that is totally not relevant, not the issue
to elections.
I understand your argument, which I will not get into. But I just want to point out that you see what you have outlined, the scenario you have outlined, it's not the law at play, because you already pointed out. Just allow me. You already pointed out they could have choose A, but they went and choose B. So it's not the law at play. One could have said at that time what was manifestly the case was political. It was politics at play. So now the law is there.
So now coming to the law.
See, this is the thing.
So Tony,
politics will always be at play. That is why you need strong institutions. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Sometimes, yes.
All right. First and foremost. So to come to that law part of it, when you look at the 1997 Constitution, in one sense you can see accountability frameworks, mechanisms. All right. But in another sense, you can also see how those accountability
can be defeated,
are being diluted. All right. Let's say appointment of IC, commissioners. All right. The National Assembly itself, there's no framework to legally constitutionally hold them to account, because Section 92, which is about recall, they have still failed. 1997, it was written in that constitution that, after the coming into force of this constitution, National Assembly member would, by an act of parliament, create the mechanism for recall of members. Section 92.
Yes.
Today we are 30 years after 1997. They have not done that. But they went and changed Section 91 1D. All right, to serve themselves. All right. So what is happening is that, first and foremost, you need to have a strong constitution, setting strong accountability mechanisms, strong standards, strong checks and balances, so that in the event of a person without character, without integrity, the constitution will become an obstacle. Because even there, people can flout it. Jamu flouted the 1997 Constitution when it was very clear things you cannot do. He declared the Gambia Islamic State. When Section 101 says the laws that you cannot do is to create a state religion. He did it. You know what I'm saying? National Assembly members who had powers to impeach him for that, because violation of a provision of the Constitution by the president is grounds. It's one of the grounds for impeachment. They did not impeach him. So, but important point is, we need a strong constitution. If we want to have strong institutions, we want to have strong officials.
Yeah.
All right? You need a strong constitution to create the framework, the foundation for that. Right now, it will be difficult for the IGP to be a strong official, to build a strong Gambia police force. It will be very difficult for the IC commissioner to be a strong institution, because whilst the norms, even apart from the law, the norms of the law, democratic norms, will require you to have a certain level of independence and institutional independence. But because the constitutional frameworks have not really provided you the necessary protection, security, that also weakens your ability to be
address the issue of IEC, for example.
Finally,
issue of IEC, for example. You know, if you read the constitutional framework, it's very clear. The chairperson and the commission itself operate independently, without influence, without any external influence. That is sufficient security. And the type of thing is outlined. Let me just go.
Not sufficient, though, but necessary.
It's necessary.
But not
in my opinion, you know, I think what comes to play.
So, but some of us, what we're advocating for IEC chairman's position should be something that should be vetted.
I agree.
Yeah. So these are processes. Vetting process is very important.
Come to the vetting process.
Yeah.
Again. What we are doing, what we are insisting on vetting process is subjecting him to political, another political process.
Yeah.
Believe me, you shift him from the executive, bring him to another institution, or whatever framework we intend to create.
Yeah.
He will again be subjected to political processes.
Yeah. But there at the National Assembly, you have divergent political opinions there. And there,
I don't know which one carries the way.
But look, let me tell you what happens. Look at what happened with the ombudsman. When they brought somebody, people had issues with, they rejected it. But they went brought another person, the entire house voted for that person.
And that is that is the
right thing to do.
And that is my point.
Yeah.
My point is that when the framework is there, perhaps we may need to improve it, which I agree to.
Seriously.
We may need to improve, which I agree to. But if we entirely cut the debate on the building of institution, forgetting that if we don't have the right personnel and personalities to ensure that the laws are upheld, at the end of the day, we are just shifting the post.
You know why? You know how we will get to the right people? You know how we will get to right people? Because if the president know, if I bring Tony will be vetted. He will make sure before he brings Tony, he has already done his right work to make sure Tony is the right candidate. So that is why that will help the presidency. It will help us as a citizen, because the president will try to bring people that will not waste his time, because he knows that these people, when I bring him, this person, he will be vetted properly because he is the right candidate.
I agree that will be the normal thing. And that's why even the rejection that you said, that they would have done their work.
Yeah.
Parliament as an institution would have done its work. My point is, I agree with the need to improve our institutions. But normally we speak as if the current framework is as if it is dead. I personally, I have seen almost a lot of similarity, if not exact provisions of the 1997 Constitution that are in the 2020 and 2025 draft. Does it need improvement? We all agree, does need improvement. Now, it is those improvement that we should speak on. That's why earlier on I spoke on the type of institution I want us to have.
You said you want accountability. For example, the 2024 draft, it says the anti-corruption bill. We all know the anti-corruption bill has been watered down by the assembly when they voted in accountability part, right? Now, for example, the 2024 draft says, yeah, as president and ministers, you can declare your assets when you come to office. But after office, you don't even have to declare. But the same draft says, National Assembly members that we don't entrust any budget to. Their only job is to make laws, right? We say, oh, when you're coming in, you should declare, but when you're leaving, you should declare. What is the rationale behind it? There's no accountability there.
Now, let me answer this. You see, when we ask such question, what do? We provide an answer. Answers may differ. Your answer is that it doesn't support accountability, which you, Mr. Jobarteh, and myself want to have there.
Yeah.
If the answer is no, it doesn't provide accountability. Now, what do? We say, this is what we need to do to ensure that this aspect of accountability, democratic rule, responsible governance is there.
Yeah.
If you say this is how we can put it there, then we advocate for that. The political process comes in. The members of the political players will have to trade.
Yeah.
Let's have this clause there, let's have the clause there. But if you say, just because X is there, Y is not there, or Y is not there, X is not there, we are going to abort the entire process. When there's a framework in place through the National Assembly, for us to have that political dialogue, which you and I are having here right now, to have the political dialogue to ensure that we can amend it. We can put this there. The Assembly itself can take up initiative to consult the people who are not consulted. If the executive don't do its job, Parliament cannot say we are not going to do our job.
Yeah.
If the executive don't consult the people, consult Mr. Jobarteh.
Parliament can do that.
And Parliament can consult. Yeah. Because at the committee stage, Parliament can take as long as it deems necessary to consult, to hear opinion, to submit. And Mr. Jobarteh is here. He's very excellent in that.
Yeah.
He submits papers without even being asked. He reads a bill, he sees something that he has an opinion on, he submits paper to the committees. And the committees take consideration. I'm sure if you look at the reports of the National Assembly, you see Mr. Jobarteh listed there as a witness or somebody who provided an opinion. So we have the framework. Why should it take us another, why should our political, constitutional building process, history, be halted here for another process to be?
Yeah, I believe
when we can talk more, when we can consult more, when we can do all that has not been done, even what he said has not been done, the legitimacy that the executive may have failed to have thought, can we not do it?
Yeah.
It is too late to do it? The answer is no. We can always do that.
Thank you very much, Tony and Madi. This is a very interesting conversation. I wish we can continue beyond this. And I believe if this draft is thrown out, I don't think we will have another constitution very soon, because it's going to be difficult.
The people are around. They will decide.
People will decide. But what is your final message, Tony? What is your final message on this?
My final message will be that.
You think we should vote for this draft?
Whether or not we should vote, I don't. I will not say. I will have my opinion when the entire process is. When first ensure that when let Parliament do its work. Because right now I'm sure I will not be voting on what I currently see.
Okay.
That is evident.
Okay.
Because I will not be voting on that.
Okay.
Because unless Parliament just want to submit it to the people.
Yeah.
If that is the case, then I will have an opinion. But unless Parliament does the necessary amendment and give me a final draft, then I'll tell them, even there and then, even if I'll tell them that whether or not I'll vote for it or not. And I'll come out evidently to campaign. Because this is an opportunity for all of us to have positions to campaign for the constitution that we want. But just to say that this process belongs to us as Gambians. We should not entirely leave it in the hands of politicians to decide what they want. And we do so, we take up the process by ensuring that our full participation.
Let me send it to you.
Our full participation is in place. What we are currently doing is what we need to have, the conversation. And I also urge that the conversation, let it not be too political or looking at who is speaking, whether Mr. Jobarteh or Mr. Mendy is the one speaking. We need to have that dialogue, because it's not only a legal process, it's also a political process. And when you place the political process above the legal process, it's defeated. So both political players must be ready to trade, must be ready to listen, must be ready to dialogue, and it's only then we can have a constitution. If not, well, the constitution that Mr. Jobarteh so much doesn't desire to have will continue to be in place.
Madi, your final message.
So thank you for having me.
As Irali said, we should participate in the process. We should take ownership. A constitution is not just legal or political. It's social, it's cultural, it's religious, and so on. You've heard about the debate about secularity or not, and all other issues. Because whatever I am, I want to have a constitution that provides me the space and the freedom and the everything for me to live in this country in safety, with hope and so on for me and generations of me to come. So a constitution is not a joke. No, it is serious. So I hear people say it's all political, it's not only legal, it's also political. No, it's more than that. It's cultural. How I want to practice my culture, want to live, is all about that. So, Fatu, what I would say, this constitution should be thrown out because it is illegitimate and it is an insult to government people that the people we elect and appoint to public office to sit down on their own and write a constitution whose provisions effectively are going to constitutionalize dictatorship in this country and constitutionalize corruption in this country. Government should bear in mind that 21 cabinet ministers and 58 national don't own this country. They are our servants, our bidan.
They bring to you.
Right? They don't own this country. All right. We all own this country.
Yeah.
And we should not be frightened, all right, to the point that they hijack us. They keep us at ransom. That if you don't vote for this, then it is going to be 1997 constitution.
Yeah.
History is recorded. We've lived with 30 years of 1997 constitution. Even with the 1997 constitution, if we want to be good citizens, that consensus citizenship is talking about, we can make the Gambia very effective, viable republic, even with the 1997 constitution. Because it has also strong elements in terms of accountability and, all the things we are talking about, building strong institutions. All right. So, we should not be frightened that the 1997 is so terrible that we are going to die the next day if we don't have a new constitution.
Sure.
All right. What we should avoid is for politicians to hijack our sovereignty, to hijack our power, our will as citizens of this country, put us through a process that at the end of the day, either is going to give us a very compromised constitution. All right, because they can have this committee, it can be with them 3 months, 1 year, 5 years, all right, go through all the consultations. At the end of the day, it has to come back to the committee to vote on it. It has to go back to the plenary to vote on it still. There's a third reading that is also supposed to come to vote on it. And what will that final draft that they are going to put on the plenary, how is it going to look like? When will they put that before us? So we need to think about that. So if that is a draft that is so compromised, diluted,
We can't speculate that.
all right, fine. But we have to consider all factors.
All factors.
All right. So that what would that mean? Or in the final analysis, the committee did not agree, or the plenary comes out and they still vote down that constitution after 3 months, 1 year, whatever.
It becomes
time.
a waste of our time,
All right.
our resources.
So, and then we all sit back and then Barrow and his team find scapegoats. The others on the other side, everybody finding scapegoats. Why? Why should that be? That we don't have to go through that. We have to remind Mr. Barrow of his sacred duty. He's out of office as the president of this country. Why did you kill 2020? I mean, I'm surprised Gambians have failed to hold Barrow and the National Assembly accountable, severely accountable for killing 2020 draft. Why should we give them an opportunity once again
To kill this one.
to take us through this process?
Yeah.
So that is why, for me, this process has to stop. And we make the government, the executive and legislature understand that, look, this country is not yours alone. Give us a legitimate process that is going to give us a legitimate constitution. And we move, and we can do that even before the end of 2025. Have a very legitimate process, a very clean, a legitimate Republican constitution that we deserve. We can do it. So what I will tell citizens, we say political will. They are not going to have political will, the parliamentarians, the executive, and so on, until you and me as ordinary citizens create a political demand. All right? Until we make them realize that, look, your decisions are going to have consequences. You will face consequences for what you decide. You see, Father, I think this country still, our people are yet to realize, I mean, probably it is what he said, which is missing, that political orientation, socialization.
Yeah.
Our people are yet to realize that we are the owners of this country.
Yeah.
And these are not issues we should rationalize and trying to adjust and, maneuver and, trying to push here and there. No, we have to be very clear.
Yeah. In this day and age, if politicians are telling us, that only shows us what that the mentality.
But it's great, you know. I mean, Tony is one of our youths.
Tony should be coming more often to Cape Verde, honestly.
You know, that make me have hope in this country.
Honestly,
yes. And you know, I think the leaders tomorrow that will emerge to salvage this country, he will be part
of them. And I always say it's just good to have people like him who can come here and have this kind of conversations. You know, we don't have a lot of people doing that, and you should be coming more often to Kirfatu. Yeah, it will be interesting, because we don't have a lot of lawyers coming on platforms, and it's good to have their opinions. Thank you very much, Madi. Thank you, Tony. And until we come your way next week with the National Civic Education, they always tell us they don't have an opinion, just like Tony. They only tell us what is on the Constitution. So it's always good to have these kind of conversations. You know, whenever I come, I am always tell them, look, back to sender. But they always give us reasons why we can amend and all that stuff. But
we can always, dialogue is the best approach. We can always talk as, I'm sure by the time Mr. Jobarteh is convinced that the assembly should pause and talk, because aside that, if we don't pause and talk, then
it will be difficult.
The approach will be more or less impossible. So it's important we talk.
It's important we talk. Gambians want the Constitution, but a lot of the Gambians that we encounter with, even people that call on the show, will tell you it's not this Constitution.
Perhaps too, they misunderstand that it's not necessarily this one that they will have. That's why I told him we are speculating, we're jumping the gun. By the time, unless Parliament said they're not going to touch it, whatever will come there, the final one will have to come from Parliament to the IEC.
Yeah.
So let's wait for that. If that one doesn't come,
well, let's wait for March and see. But I do know that Honorable Madi Sise and Honorable Almame told me they are sending this 40 feet deep. That's what he told me. He said 40 feet deep. He speaks like his boss. He said 40 feet deep. And Madi said that he is not voting for it. Wow. So we will definitely need both aisles to come together to have 75%. That's the threshold you need for this to go through, right? To the other stage. You need 2/3 majority.
Let me just explain. The first reading, there's no voting. The second reading, that will be the 75%, the 2/3 threshold. Yes. Following that, you go to committee, and then there will be consultation. And then you go to consideration stage where they will do the amendments. When they are done, before the third reading, the final version will be printed.
And that also, even the amendment stage, they will need 2/3 majority.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
That's the law.
So this is why when I had the National Assembly members here, Ablaye Sise said, no, let's go to committee stage. Madi said, no, why didn't you allow us to go to committee in the 2020? Because you know the politicians, right? They are politicians, because they said they have more powers, they have more numbers in the committee. So when they go, Human Rights Committee is where it goes, and then Madi is the head. Yes. But Madi doesn't have enough members to push what they think is necessary, right? Ablaye's team, they have more members. So whoever has more members in that committee, whatever they want will be supreme, right?
They come back to the plenary.
They come back to the plenary. When they come back to the plenary, how many numbers do they need when they are voting on individual sections?
Simple majority.
Simple majority. Yes. This is the thing. So that is why they are saying we are not even going to that stage.
No, simple majority to vote as to amend.
Yes.
But you need absolute majority to vote
the entire
thing for it to pass.
Yes.
For it to pass that reading, you need to absolute majority.
Yeah.
So whatever happened at the consideration stage, if it doesn't
reflect,
or if it doesn't fundamentally reflect what the politician desire, which I don't know.
Yeah.
Then they still have an opportunity to vote no.
No.
So if you read section 226, which I and Madi have made reference of here for a long time, you need 2/3 at the second stage, and you need 2/3 at the third reading.
Yeah.
So the 2/3, whatever you amend at the consideration stage, you still have an opportunity on the third reading to vote no.
To vote no.
So that's why I said there's still an opportunity to talk.
Okay.
And I think even one of our veterans made that position in his series, in Constitutional Building and Socio-Economic Challenge, one of these series, he made the point that we seem to jump the gun. Like if we say we are not going to talk like we did the last time, we are not going to even go to consideration stage and talk and dialogue. That means we are not even saying, we are saying we are not going to do our responsibility, because that is the function. We have that power.
Okay.
As an institution assembly to do that.
do
So
that.
it's up to
the assembly members.
The members.
We look forward to what is going to happen in March. Madi says send it back. Tony says let's have a conversation and look at the process. Let's go through the process and have a conversation. That's what it is.
Conversation is necessary.
It's necessary.
It's so necessary.
It's so necessary. Until we come back again next week. Good night to you all. See you again. Bye-bye.
Jamu Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamu, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamu Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamu Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamu Money Transfer.